Namaskaram, my people. I'm almost time to go to work, and I just finished my yoga to get some circulation back in my legs. I'll do my run here pretty soon. I jog and I run. I had to share though what's going on in my world. Besides transforming my body, I'm back to my whole food, plant-based eating, which is helping tremendously. However, as I'm as I pursue the empty thought sadhana every day, my mind is so clear. I love languages, always have. Dead languages, it's important. No Italian, French, German, Russian, Spanish. No, it's got to be dead or very ancient. So, a long time ago, I bought this book by James Allen. It's a pretty good size one. It's a good mixture between thorough, but not so thorough as to be unintelligible. I once had a chance to buy a book, a grammar by Gardner, and that was like for an archaeologist. Gesenius's Hebrew grammar is meant for an archaeologist. That's like really, really intense, not meant to learn Hebrew book. So Egyptian, it's not too tough. It's tough to pronounce because they give you these weird romanization like TRW with no vowels. How do you supposed to say tutur? So there's a YouTube channel that is keyed to that book, about 30 videos, and she pronounces they're called uniliterals, biliterals, and triliterals, meaning there's 1, 2, or 3 consonant sounds in this character, an owl or a loaf of bread or something. In passing, I want to mention, probably part of the inspiration, Robert Conrad did a documentary on Egyptian language, and he showed the characters in a inscription for Tutankhamun, as we say in English. So the 2 loaves of bread, tut, with a vowel in between tut, the character for Ankh, right, the cross of the loop on Ankh, and the god Amun kneeling, a common character. So Tutankhamun, Tutankhamun, fascinating. It's a fascinating story how the language was decrypted as well, using the cartouche, French for cartridge, by the way, because the French soldiers thought it looked like their rifle cartridges. In a cartouche, you got Cleopatra and Ptolemy, and you had hieroglyphs and hieratic, and you had Greek, which we knew Greek. Is it hieratic? It's Coptic. I'm sorry. Hieroglyphs, Coptic, and Greek. So noticing the Ptolemy, Ptolemy, they were able to, Champollion was able to work out which one went to which and begin the process of properly decrypting the language, which had been a mystery for centuries. Fascinating stuff. What do we have? I have not a lot, but a couple old Hebrew grammars from the 1930s, 1800s. They're very thorough, but they're meant to be used by a professor, and they're very difficult to follow. This is a wonderful modern Hebrew teaching book recommended by Mr. Dan McClellan, my inspiration for getting back into my studies for Greek and Hebrew anyway. Dan McClellan, he teaches from this book, by the way. It has a workbook that I've yet to order, so we'll get that going. I did read the first like 10 pages, and boy, they're thorough, but they're not incomprehensible. The older grammars are hard to read and hard to follow. This is not. It's very much step by step. Hebrew has a very short alphabet, easy to deal with. Aleph, Beth, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Wab, Zayin, Heth, Dalet, and so forth. 22 characters, very simple. The vowels are not too difficult. The rules for breaking down syllables is complicated-ish. Still, Hebrew is wonderfully easy to learn, I think. Inspired by Dan McClellan to reinitialize my studies. This is the Greek New Testament that I had when I was in seminary in the mid-'80s. And it has, let's see if we can get this right. It has what is known at the very bottom there as a textual apparatus. So if there's an alternate reading in a different manuscript, it'll show you that reading and what manuscript it comes from. And then you got to make a textual decision as to which one you think should be there. In general, textual errors are longer rather than shorter. So the shorter reading is probably the correct one. It tends to be that some guy wrote a margin and then someone just stuck it in the text, and there it is. Centuries later, there it is. The oldest complete manuscripts now are complete New Testaments with some extra books in there that were valid at the time. The Codex Sinaiticus, the Codex Vaticanus, and I forgot the other one, the third one, that are complete. Beyond that, we have older fragments of New Testament documents. It only concerns me, I'm Hindu, right? Why do I care? Because Dan McClellan uses pure scholarship only to point out what it says and what it doesn't say. And what it doesn't say is gays are going to hell. It's because I'm jackass of a preacher. If you are gay or if you tolerate gayness, you are going to hell. And he uses a verse from Romans, I think. The Apostle Paul never once mentions hell, actually. That word translated homosexual has nothing to do with the word in English. They didn't understand homosexuality at all by the same concept that we have today. Those are ancient people, and they thought differently than we do. So they wrote differently than we do. Christian evangelicalism has hijacked it and turned it into a weapon to use on us all. So I enjoy the fact that I can read Greek fairly well, and using that to discuss what these people meant when they wrote what they wrote based on the culture they lived in. So where's it at? Oh yeah, I'm so pleased to have this. It's been years and years since I owned one. A nice Septuagint. The ancient, I'm going to say like 3rd century BCE Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible. Not that we don't say Old Testament, as Dan taught me, and that Jewish people are insulted by the term Old Testament. Hebrew Bible, because they had better access to older manuscripts in Hebrew than we do. The readings are often different, and for one example, the Dead Sea Scrolls often have the reading that is in the Septuagint. So the Septuagint is an important tool for deciphering the Old Testament. I was fascinated to read the English rendition of Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, in the King James, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void. Strange thing to say. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the water, the Ruach of God, Spirit. A better reading, which is preserved, by the way, in Robert Anton's translation of the Hebrew Bible, which I will eventually get my hands on. Because the verb form there, as God began to create the heavens and the earth, a different thing. The waters the Spirit moved on were already there. In that reading, God did not create the earth, the heavens and the earth, out of nothing, ex nihilo, which modern Christians think today just poofed into existence. Some nitwit was on a video saying God created everything ex nihilo, which is in the Bible, which it certainly is not. It is not. Never did God poof something into existence. The rapture doesn't occur in the New Testament. It was made up by Darby, mostly in the 1800s. All the nonsense that had been made up over time and pushed into the text and made to fit. If you believe that one God, one being wrote the whole thing, then everything in that book has to agree with everything else. And this is what they believe, and they try to force it to, and it doesn't. because it's written by humans over a long period of time, and it just doesn't. It is full of contradictions. That's okay. The Hindu scriptures are full of contradictions, and we know it, and we don't care. It's not about the writing. We don't have faith in our writing. It's about transcendence. It's about awakening, which cannot be spoken or written. It doesn't matter if the Vedas contradict the Bhagavad Gita in places. But Christians, because they believe in one Jehovah who wrote the whole thing, they got a problem. So I enjoy pointing out these problems. This is by the same publisher as the Septuagint, a grammar of Septuagint Greek, which I've yet to get into. That Greek is called Koine, or Common Greek, simpler than Classical Greek. So I'm not going to grab it. It's right up there on the shelf. I got a book called Athenaze, meant to teach classical Greek, and teaching it by examples. They put like a paragraph about a farmer during the Peloponnesian Wars and what experience he had, and then they teach you the grammar that you need, and the vocab that you need to read the text. It's well done that way, as opposed to pages and pages and pages of grammar. And after all that suffering, you don't get to read anything. This is a much better approach, and I'm more interested in classical Greek than I would be reading biblical texts. The grammar in classical Greek is more complicated than the common Greek used. Fine by me. It should make learning grammar and vocabulary easy if I want to do a Septuagint reading or do a reading from the New Testament and point out why homosexual doesn't mean homosexual. Point out why the book of Revelation is nothing but discussions about Nero and the conditions that existed at that time, as opposed to CERN, the particle accelerator, is resurrecting demons into our dimension. It's all talked about in Revelation. And Daniel, which is full of holes and contradictions, the book of Daniel. Saying that the temporary drying of the river Euphrates is prophecy being fulfilled. The people who wrote those texts, the Gospels, who mention prophecy fulfilled, had to write it so it would. I don't believe any so-called prophecy has ever been fulfilled once. It's documents, literature written by humans. It is flawed like anything else. So there's my little we'll name it the Dan McClellan Library I decided to. There's more stuff. There's several copies of different English Bibles. There's one NIV there that is the Cultural Background Bible, so it purely focuses on culture and history and archaeology. And I'm going to get my hands on the Robert Anton translation of the Hebrew Bible, which is wonderful in terms of what I read. I downloaded a PDF of the previous edition. It was just accurate. It's wonderful. And as far as the whole Bible that we accept as the Bible now, 66 books, Dan McClellan recommends the New Revised Standard Version, the Oxford Annotated one, which is not expensive. I'll get my hands on that next pay period. I have up there on my shelf, The library is like biblical Christian in that little section. The rest is that blue stuff there. That's a 9-volume set of all Vivekananda's writings. It's marvelous. The rest is all Hindu, and it's a small Lord of the Rings section down there with various editions of Lord of the Rings. I'm very pleased about it. I'm very happy. 4 languages, so Sanskrit, which, my God, the alphabet I can't even get past that. It's like sounds that I cannot hear. They'll say a different letter, and it sounds like the one before it. Duh, ch. You got ch, like church, but then you got a ch with a hard H after it. And like they say they wanted to explore the sound the human mouth could make, and boy, they did. So it's taken me a while to even learn the alphabet, much less read anything in Sanskrit. Sanskrit, ancient Egyptian, which I think Sanskrit is harder, by the way. I'm learning, I don't know how to edit things. There's an Egyptian cursive that is much easier to draw than trying to make a work of art every time you want to write something. So there's a simpler owl character, the loaf of bread character for the hand, the foot for B, the B sound, so on. They're way easier to draw, and that's on purpose because the priests had to write things, and they don't want to have to take an hour to write something simple. I cannot find a text or so resource to write hieratic. I think you need to know the hieroglyphs first before you learn hieratic. The very, very wavy, cursive-looking text that became part of Egyptian. And as a 1, 2, 3, and so Hebrew, so Egyptian, Sanskrit, classical Greek, and classical Hebrew. Not modern Hebrew, since the rule is I don't want to talk to anybody in a modern language. I don't care what the Hebrew word for telephone is, or a police car, or cell phone. I'm only concerned with ancient literature. The Square Script, it's on the shelf. The very awesome Hebrew Bible that I attained just a few days ago for $25. These things go for like $80 online. Look how big that thing is. The one I owned many years ago wasn't this nice. So there's the Hebrew text. This also has a textual apparatus. So you can look at the alternate readings in the different manuscripts. And this thing's the size of a dictionary. It's amazing. The Square Script that you saw was borrowed from Aramaic. Before that, it was written in Paleo Hebrew, which looks a lot like Phoenician, which I'm going to learn, I think, just for the hell of it, just for no real good reason. There are manuscripts written in Paleo Hebrew that are hard to look at. But the one like the Dead Sea Scrolls are mostly written in Square Script, like that. Only it's handwritten, so it's hard to read. Like their handwriting looks sloppy. It would be hard to do beautiful cursive every time you write. And that's that. So that's my project. Oh, may as well. So what I do for all 4 languages, I make a set of 3x5 cards and a marker, because I find a pen is not adequate for me to write like Hebrew and Sanskrit. All right, my friends, namaskaram as always. Wish me luck on my linguistic journey, and I will talk soon.